Okay, I want you to picture a town where pretty much nothing gets thrown away. I mean, a place that has recycling down to such a fine art, it almost feels like science fiction. Well, today, we're going there, to a small town in Japan, to figure out exactly how they pull it off.
Get ready for this number. Over 80%. That's the recycling rate in Osaki town. It's not just good for the environment, it's one of the highest recycling rates on the entire planet. Seriously, it's a world-class achievement.
So, that's the big question, right? How on earth does a small town do something that entire countries struggle with? It's not some crazy technology, but it is an incredible lesson in organization and just people working together.
All right, so let's dive into this 80% mystery. The secret to Osaki town isn't some giant futuristic factory. It's actually a system, and more importantly, a mindset that starts right inside every single person's home.
And here it is. This is the heart of the system. Residents have to sort their own trash into, wait for it, 40 different categories. Yep, 40. Not the 2 or 3 bins most of us are used to. It sounds completely overwhelming, I know, but how they make it work is the real genius here.
Okay, so how in the world do you even begin to manage 40 categories? Well, you start with the simple stuff. The first 2 big groups cover everything that can't easily be recycled. So you've got 2 main paths for the non-recyclables. On one hand, you have combustible waste. Think food scraps, used paper towels. That stuff isn't just wasted, it's burned to generate electricity for the town. Then you have non-combustibles, like a broken coffee mug. That goes to a carefully managed landfill, and the whole point of the system is to make sure as little as possible ends up there.
And what about the big things, like an old chair or a bike? That falls under a special category called sodai gomi. And here, the first thought is always, can we reuse this? If it's fixable, it gets a second life and is sold. If not, it's taken apart piece by piece. Metal, wood, plastic, everything is salvaged. The landfill is truly the last resort.
Okay, now we get to the really wild part. This is where that intense sorting starts to make sense, because we get to see what all this stuff actually becomes.
Just look at this breakdown for paper. In Osaki, there's no such thing as just paper. Newspapers are kept separate so they can be turned right back into new newsprint. Those milk and juice cartons you rinse out, they become toilet paper. By sorting this carefully, they ensure that the recycled materials are super high quality, which makes them way more valuable.
And believe me, it doesn't stop with paper, not even close. They apply the exact same logic to plastics and other containers. There are 12 different categories just for those things, because, a plastic bottle is chemically very different from a plastic food wrapper.
And this is where it gets cool. Your clear plastic water bottle? It might come back as a new bottle, or it could be spun into the fibers for your fleece jacket. The tiny bottle caps, they get collected and recycled separately. Even styrofoam trays are melted down into pellets to make new products. That flimsy plastic wrap you can never get off the roll, they even collect that and turn it into stuff like plastic benches. Literally, nothing is wasted.
Okay, so paper and plastics make a certain kind of sense, but what about all that other weird stuff we all have? The things you have no idea what to do with, like old batteries or a burned-out light bulb. How does Osaki handle all that?
This is where the system gets seriously impressive. It's not just about recycling, it's about safely handling potentially dangerous materials and recovering every last bit of value from them. Think about this. Those long fluorescent light tubes contain toxic mercury, right? Here, it's carefully captured and recycled. Old batteries are broken down to get back valuable metals like cobalt. Even empty spray cans have a protocol. You make sure they're totally empty, and then the metal can is recycled. And get this, small electronics are basically treated like urban mines, taken apart to recover tiny bits of copper and even gold. And here's my favorite one. What do you do with used cooking oil? Well, you definitely don't pour it down the sink. In Osaki, it's collected and turned into biodiesel fuel for trucks or even used to make soap. It is the perfect example of turning something we'd call waste into a valuable resource.
So, we've seen the what, the incredible detail of the sorting. And we've seen the why, the amazing things they create. But the how is still the biggest question. How does every single person in a town of thousands know how to do all of this correctly?
Well, the secret isn't a fancy smartphone app or some expensive technology. It's actually something much more tangible and honestly brilliant in its simplicity. A 27-page instruction manual that's delivered to every single home.
It's called the Gomi Calendar,
which just means garbage calendar. And this right here, this is the key that unlocks the whole system. It's not just a schedule, it's the Bible of waste disposal for every person in Osaki town.
Here's how it makes the impossible possible. First, it's full of pictures. You don't have to guess what goes where, you just find the picture. Second, it has an ultra-detailed schedule. It'll tell you that, say, plastic bottles are only picked up on the first and third Tuesday of the month. And third, and this is crucial, it tells you exactly how to prepare everything. How to wash out a milk carton, how to flatten a cardboard box. It takes all the guesswork out of the equation.
And that leads to the real secret, doesn't it? The calendar is an amazing tool, but it's useless if people don't use it. The success of this whole thing comes down to the people. It's about massive community buy-in and a shared understanding of why it's so important. It's a team effort from start to finish.
And the payoff is huge. Together, the community has practically eliminated the need for new landfills. They're creating their own power, and they're pumping a constant stream of high-quality, valuable materials back into the economy. It is a genuine circular system in action.
So, as we wrap this up, the big takeaway from Osaki Town isn't about the bins or the trucks. It's proof that this level of recycling is possible. It's not about magic tech, it's about clear communication and a community that decides to work together. And that leaves us with a really interesting question, doesn't it? Could a system like this actually work where you live?